It's dawn, and it's a clear day. It's the 1st of January 2020, and we're getting ready to go flying. Always a good time to go flying is dawn. Have the aircraft ready for the sun to come up, and then we get a good start on the day. So we need to fill up. We don't have much range, as you can see, 1 hour, 12 minutes until we run out of gas. Okay, let's go. Let's get the map up first. It's much better getting the map sorted out on the ground and in the air, and don't forget to put the afterburner on. Afterburner switch on. There you go. Right, let's go. Parking brakes off. Canopy closed. Power looking good. 100 knots. 120. N1. Goodbye. A good time last night at New Year there. And this is the Caspian Sea. Hopefully this is the last leg. God damn that guy. Sunrise over Iran. I'm continuing following the lake around the Caspian Sea. I believe how overcast it was yesterday, and then today it's beautiful. Well, it is so far. Okay, we're going to reduce the power a little bit.
London Eye were at the heart of the celebrations. Meanwhile, in Edinburgh, as many as 100,000 people joined in what was called the world's biggest street party.
And in New Year messages, Boris Johnson said that the UK will turn the page on division, rancour and uncertainty. And the Archbishop of Canterbury called for the UK to start healing divisions. We'll have more on that for you in a moment. But first, here's this report on the London celebrations from Enda Brady.
This was London saying farewell to one decade and welcoming in another in spectacular fashion. Big Ben chimed for the first time in a year.
I don't need introduction, follow my simple instructions.
And the heart of the city was illuminated by a stunning display of fireworks and music. For the 100,000 people who'd been lucky enough to buy front row tickets, it was well worth the wait.
You have no idea, it is like amazing. It is an extraordinary experience.
I'm freezing.
Was it worth the wait?
It's worth it, definitely. Yeah, it's so beautiful. I love it.
Sammy, what did you think of the fireworks?
It was amazing. It was amazing. It's beautiful.
It's magical. It's beautiful, like the lights, everything, the sound.
It's the year when football comes home. It's the UEFA Euro 2020 finals in London.
2020 will see the European Football Championships take place with 7 games at Wembley, including the final. So it was no surprise to see football taking such a prominent role in this display. Well, if 2019 was a year of division, the message tonight in London is that this city, from 2020 onwards, is open to everyone. In Scotland, Edinburgh hosted what it called the world's largest street party. They used 3.3 tons of fireworks for an incredible display that lasted 8 minutes. An estimated 100,000 people were on the streets to witness it. Organising all of this costs a huge amount of money, but it has sent a message to the world that London is open for business and ready for whatever the 2020s will bring. Enda Brady, Sky News, in central London.
Oh, they need to be.
And plenty of other places around the world, of course, also seeing in the new year. Thousands gathered in Moscow to watch a colourful firework display over the Red Square and the Kremlin.
And that's Germany, where the Brandenburg Gate was lit up in Berlin. Tens of thousands gathered there to ring in the turn of the decade.
In Paris, huge crowds gathered on the Champs-Élysées, despite there being no public transport and those ongoing strikes. Those who did manage to make it were entertained with a light show at the Arc de Triomphe, followed by fireworks over the night.
And it's not a compilation, is it, without Times Square in, of course, New York, where revelers watched a 6-hour New Year's Eve extravaganza, pyrotechnics, dancers, performances from singer-songwriter Alanis Morissette, Post Malone, and many more.
Meanwhile, in his New Year message, Boris Johnson says he wants to turn the page on division, rancour and uncertainty and make the 2020s a decade of prosperity and opportunity. The Prime Minister, currently on his hauls in the Caribbean, said that with the UK set to leave the EU on January the 31st, the government could now look to address other priorities.
He's gone to tax havens to hide his money.
Future ahead. Let's make this the moment when we put the divisions behind us. Let's come together and go forward with confidence into the 20s, an exhilarating decade of growth, prosperity and opportunity.
Fuck off, Boris.
And meanwhile, the Archbishop of Canterbury has shared his message for the new year, and he's called for the UK to start healing divisions. He visited an RNLI station in Dover and urged people there to find new ways to connect with others in 2020.
It could be by joining a voluntary organisation or a charity. It may be sorting food in a food bank. We rightly think of lifeboat crews as heroic, although they may be embarrassed to hear that. Yet every time we reach out and connect with someone, it is an act of heroism. Don't underestimate it.
Also this morning, the US President Donald Trump has told Iran that it will be held fully responsible if lives are lost at the US Embassy in Iraq, and that it will pay a very big price.
Well, that follows an attack on the embassy by protesters who the US believe were stirred up by Iran. Mr. Trump is also deploying 750 more troops to the region to enhance the security there. Emma Birchley reports.
US armed forces land in Iraq to protect the country's embassy in Baghdad. They're being bolstered by an additional 750 troops being sent to the region in an emergency deployment. It comes after violent protesters attacked the US embassy in Baghdad. It was in retaliation for US airstrikes against an Iranian-backed militia in Iraq accused of targeting US forces. Some broke inside. The rest hurled stones and insults from outside the compound walls. The yellow flag of the Kataib Hezbollah militia, evidence of whose side they're on. The breach triggered US forces to respond, dispersing protesters. A swift response from US forces came with a swift response from the US president, making clear on Twitter he believes Iran is behind the attack. Iran will be held fully responsible for lives lost or damage incurred at any of our facilities. They will pay a very big price. This is not a warning, it is a threat. Happy New Year. Those explosive words were toned down when he was asked about possible conflict with Iran as he headed for a New Year's party.
Do I want to? No. I want to have peace. I like peace. And Iran should want peace more than anybody. So I don't see that happening. No, I don't think Iran would want that to happen. It would go very quickly.
But tensions in the region continue to simmer.
That there is huge animosity towards the US in Iraq, not in all of Iraq, all of the time, but from very large sections of the population, and we understand why that is, and it's going to be very hard to diminish it.
Okay, I've got visual with the coastline.
The US will be watching this situation closely as it continues to maintain a balance with its fragile relationships in the Middle East. Emma Birchley, Sky News.
9 people are now confirmed to have died in the bushfires which have engulfed Australia's southeast since Christmas. More than 200 homes were lost yesterday as fires raced along the coast and encircled towns, sending residents fleeing to the beach for shelter.
I stayed in Ford, yeah, but I'd say to anybody, don't stay, just go. No, don't stay, just go. Just get out and go. Just, all you do is put your life at risk. There's no need to, just go, just get out and go.
Language in his voice there. Conditions have eased slightly today, and a major road which was closed in Victoria was reopened but only for 2 hours to allow people to leave. But that respite isn't expected to last long. Let's go live now to Sky's Tom Cheshire, who's at the edge of the fire cordon in Bumbarra, that's in the state of Victoria. Tell us what the conditions are like there today, Tom.
As you're saying, it has eased off a bit. What we've been doing today is following people who've been getting supplies from Bensdale, which is one of the relief centres where people were told to evacuate. 75,000 people were told to evacuate this area in East Gippsland and get to safety. Today they've been trying to get supplies through. We've been following, and they've been bringing them through up there to Bucket. That place has no water, we were hearing earlier, so they're desperate to get supplies. They've been taking trucks, they're hoping to get helicopters there tomorrow. And Buckham's also the place where one of those deaths took place yesterday. 3 deaths yesterday, 1 person still unaccounted for, following 4 deaths the day before. So it has been a very, very deadly time. This has been the most vicious, really, the fires we've seen, which has lasted since September. So it's been a really tough few days for people, both those stuck in the zones as well, and people we spoke to who've lost their houses, who've been in those relief centres, who've seen New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, sitting in tents, hearing that their homes have burned down. So it's a very drastic situation. But as you're saying, you see today, it's not as windy, it's not as hot. That's all good news. The thing they haven't got is rain, and that's the only thing that's going to put out these fires. That way there's another fire raging over there, which is the one threatening the Tower of Buchan, and it simply hasn't been contained. It can't be contained unless by nature. So what they're using, though, today, these conditions, is to try and reach those communities who have been cut off, who had to take shelter, get them supplies, try and re-establish contact, take a reckoning of the amount of people, make sure that everyone is accounted for. But they know this isn't going to last. The weather is going to pick up again on Saturday. Everyone is looking forward to Saturday as a day that could be as bad or potentially even worse than what we've seen so far. The winds are going to pick up. It's going to be very, very hot again. So this is a brief moment of respite, really, to connect with those people who've suffered already so much in Monday and Tuesday, but also preparation, trying to contain these fires, trying to make sure people are safe for what comes on Saturday, because people fearing, fire officials thinking it may be worse.
All right, Tom, stay safe.
Now let's bring you some of the day's other news now. Police in Staffordshire are appealing for information after a 62-year-old woman driving a mobility scooter was killed in a hit-and-run. The incident took place at the junction of Pye Green Road and St Aidan's Road in Cannock last night. Police are looking for a silver-coloured Volkswagen Golf, which has front-end damage.
Kim Jong-un has warned North Korea will soon reveal a new strategic weapon, as it's been called, to the world, while expressing frustration over stalled nuclear negotiations. The North Korean leader said his country would bolster its nuclear deterrent in the face of what he called gangster-like US pressure, adding that it's no longer obliged to maintain a self-imposed suspension on the testing of intercontinental ballistic missiles.
The National Grid says it's reached a tipping point for the UK. Last year, more electricity was provided by zero-carbon means than by fossil fuels.
Well, what does that mean? Well, wind farms and solar and nuclear energy are now providing more power than the traditional coal and gas-powered ones. The producers say that the 2020s are set to be cleaner and greener. Becky Johnson reports.
This is the nerve centre of the National Electricity Transmission Network, a grid of cables sending power right across the country. And that energy is cleaner than ever before. In 2019, 48.5% of Britain's electricity came from renewables, compared with just 43% from fossil fuels. The remaining 8.5% came from biomass.
Yes, 2019 is a massively historic milestone in that it's the first time ever in the UK that we've had more electricity produced from zero carbon fields than from fossil fuels. But what's been happening over the last decade is a move to wind and solar, as well as zero carbon electricity from Europe being imported into the UK as well.
There are more projects in the pipeline, including a cable under the North Sea to connect the UK with Norway to harness the hydropower being generated there. At the same time, coal-fired power will be phased out altogether by 2025. This is undoubtedly a landmark moment, but people here know much more needs to be done if Britain is to achieve its target of being net zero carbon by 2050. One challenge is how to cope with more people buying electric cars, essential for cleaning up transport, but there's currently not enough power being generated to support the increase in demand from the national grid. At the University of Warwick, they develop batteries for electric vehicles.
These are two different types of car battery cells. You need 7,000 of these, and you probably need 1,000 of these.
To power one car.
To power one car.
They're now looking at how these can be further developed into the power storage units of the future.
Sadly, wind's not on demand. It's there all the time, or it's not there at all. So you need to capture that energy and store that energy somewhere. And batteries would be a really useful means for achieving that.
So what are you hoping this will do?
I'm hoping that these kind of products will come out of the automotive industry. They'll be low cost. It's the price point that we'd be willing to pay for them. And these will be assembled into what we call second life battery packs. They'll be stored in our homes, they'll be stored in factories or warehouses up and down the land, and they'll capture that wind energy and store it such that you and I can boil our cup of tea when we need it.
The national grid counts nuclear power as renewable. Not everyone agrees that it is, but there is consensus across the industry that while 2019 was a tipping point, the pace of progress needs to accelerate as we head into the 2020s. Becky Johnson, Sky News.
Well, as luck would have it, we have an expert on all things carbon here with us in the studio, Jill Duggan. Very good morning. Happy New Year to you. Pretty big shift being talked about in that report there. How have we managed to do it?
Well, firstly, it's wonderful news. It's a great step forward. Back in 2008, we were set a target by the European Union to meet our energy needs from renewable sources by 2020. 20% of our energy needs from renewable sources. And back then, actually, we only had about 2% of our generation from renewable sources then, and we've gone up to almost 30% now. So that's been a massive shift. Partly through having the target, partly through actually trying to meet that target, some of the costs have come down. So the cost of solar has come down through, thanks to the Germans and the Chinese predominantly, but on offshore wind power, we definitely lead the world there, and that's something that's happened that's a real positive. Another thing that's happened that's not been talked about in the report is the drop in demand for electricity.
Because appliances have become more efficient.
Appliances are more efficient and light bulbs are much more efficient. You know, there's a lot of reasons that we're using less electricity. So that's a very positive story. More can be done, and that's one of the things that really does need to be done for us to meet our 2050 targets. But actually, that's a very, very positive step.
I suppose that we really shouldn't be complacent about all of this, partly because we are still importing some of our electricity, particularly in terms of clean energy.
Well, it makes sense to import and export clean energy because, particularly if you're trying to use sort of wind and solar, then wherever it's windy or the sun's shining across Europe and our near neighbours, it makes sense to share that so that we get the best use of it. When we're producing too much wind energy, if we can send some of that to other parts of Europe, then that makes sense too. And remembering that, you know, climate change is a global problem, this is something that needs to happen across the board.
Now, you can use renewables to generate electricity, but there are very many aspects of day-to-day life where we're still quite reliant on fossil fuels. In many homes, for example, gas central heating.
Gas central heating is, I think, as your report pointed out, over the next 10 years, transport and buildings are the two big issues. And really, if you're thinking about, if you've got a gas boiler that's on its last legs, then look at heat pumps. That's really where we're going to have to go for those of us who are replacing gas boilers, and there are still big incentives from government that will pay you back through the domestic renewable heat incentive if you go down that route. So if you're looking to change, don't buy another gas boiler if you can possibly avoid it.
Is it possible for any economy to be purely renewable in terms of electricity generation? I was down at the National Grid Control Room, and they have fossil fuel plants on standby for shortfalls in the system.
Well, I think it certainly used to be thought that we would continue to need fossil fuels for that backup, the intermittency because of renewables. But the cost of battery storage has dropped by about 80% since 2010, and I think that's one of the ways that we're hoping that we can achieve this. And I think the National Infrastructure Commission a couple of years ago said that actually that looks like we'll be able to do that. That's certainly new thinking. 10 years ago we didn't think that. Now we think that we might be able to do it with battery storage and renewables. So let's see.
Coming up, we're going to have the weather for you.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Good morning. For many of us, it's a cloudy but dry start to the new year, and staying that way really for much of the day. Could be a few spots of rain for windward coasts and hills of southwest England, maybe also northwest Scotland. Otherwise, we're hoping to see a little bit of sunshine. Not much though. Eastern parts of Scotland, North Wales, Northern England may just see a glimmer of hazy sunshine as we head into the afternoon. For most though, it's a lot of cloud. Temperatures today, 6s and 7s for many. We might just see a degree or two higher across parts of the Northwest Highlands, for example. Again, thanks to just the shelter of the hills, the phone effect there.
As we go through the night tonight, most places staying dry, cloudy and breezy. Not too many worries with frost or fog. We do have rain, though, coming in to the far northwest. Now, this rain will come in across Ireland, Northern Ireland and Scotland as we head through Thursday. So wetter and windier weather sinking down from the northwest. Largely dry, though, in the south. The rain not reaching here until the early hours of Friday morning.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
After the break, we're going to round up of all the sport. Plenty of football around today, isn't there?
It's a very busy day, and of course we hear from the new Premier League managers hoping to get 2020 off to a perfect start today. With the new year here, the January transfer window is now open. Could Chelsea be set to make the first major move? And the first day of the new year brings the first final as well. It's all eyes on Ali Pali this evening as Michael van Gerwen goes in search of a 4th World Darts Championship.
I've got to cross these mountains with this cloud cover soon.
Thanks for being an inspiration.
Time for the sport.
Yeah, there's no let-up in the festive football with 9 Premier League games to come today. Mikel Arteta is targeting his first win as Arsenal head coach as they take on Manchester United at the Emirates later on this evening.
Every game for us is a must win. Against any opponent we have to win. We are Arsenal and this is the demands. The level of pressure is different when you look up on the table or down, but I wouldn't pay at the moment much attention to the table, but to our performance and the results related to the performance that we can put on the pitch.
It's been the perfect start to Carlo Ancelotti's tenure as Everton boss with 2 wins from 2 since replacing Marco Silva. A tough ask for them today, though. They're away to champions Manchester City, and the Italian appreciates the magnitude of the test that awaits his players.
against City will be a fantastic test for us to see where we are, in the sense that it's a really strong team. But we have confidence. We have confidence to do our best, to do a fantastic game.
David Moyes takes charge of his first game since returning to West
I can drive a
Ham. His side's
taxi.
at 1
I
point
drive a
above
taxi.
place
I
above
go to the
relegation, so
station, I come back. I go to the station, I come
I'm
back.
looking forward to all the games, and I mean that, because it's a little bit unknown at the moment how it's going to be. I think the results have been a little bit up and down.
If you're going to win or not.
Try and get a good team, but I'm looking forward to all the games, and obviously Bournemouth's the first one.
Going round and round in circles on a merry-go-round. Oh no, well no, this time, I go round and round on a fucking merry-go-round. Right, oh yes.
We have to improve. We concede too many goals, and it's very frustrating. If I was one of my attacking players, I would be very, very frustrated.
The January transfer window is now officially open, and Chelsea could be set to make the first major signing of the year. With their transfer ban now over, we've learned that Lyon's Moussa Dembélé is one of Frank Lampard's main targets. The former Celtic striker has scored 25 goals since returning to his native France last year. Lampard's looking for competition for Tammy Abraham, with Olivier Giroud and Michy Batshuayi both likely to leave in the January window. Tonight sees the World Darts Championship final live on Sky Sports, with £500,000 up for grabs for the winner. World number one Michael van Gerwen will look to defend his title and become a four-time world champion with a victory over Peter Wright. It's a repeat of the 2014 final, which saw Van Gerwen beat Wright 7-4 to win his first world title. MVG is pretty confident of doing the same again to become the first world champion in the tennis.
So far, I didn't have to produce my A game yet. It's nice to be in the final without doing without your top level. But me and Peter have history. We played so many games against each other, and in finals we missed match darts, and I beat him except what you just said, in the World Championship final before. So normally he's a runner-up in finals against me. So I hope I can keep it that way. That would be the most important thing for myself.
After unprecedented success at the World Championship, Fallon Sherrock has now pulled out of this month's BDO Women's World Championship. Sherrock reached the third round at Alexandra Palace, competing alongside the men, but a decision comes after it was announced prize money for the event would be cut, and most of the tickets remain unsold. Now, after leading England to the netball Commonwealth Gold and a third-place finish at last year's World Cup, Tracy Neville has stepped down as head coach in June. That's before announcing that she's expecting her first child. It's an exciting and emotional time for Neville, who suffered a miscarriage the day after England won their first major title on the Gold Coast.
What's the one memory of that World Cup that comes flooding back?
Can I say two?
You can have two.
The two memories was the stadium full of red and white. I've dreamed of that, to have crowds shout out names and be really recognised. It was probably one of my dreams come true and one of the proudest moments of my life. The second probably moment was that I truly felt that I was with my family.
It certainly has been a great decade for England netball and sport in general. We'll have plenty more in the next hour.
Rebecca, thanks very much indeed. Don't forget, we always want to hear what you have to say about the stories of the day. You can tweet us at Sky News. Neil, see you later, Rebecca. At Sky News.
She's off.
I could if I would.
You obviously bored her.
Yeah, coming up on Sky News at breakfast, bundles of cash have apparently appearing from nowhere, much like Becky, in a small village in County Durham. We'll meet the children who think they've found it.
cold this side.
Very good morning to you if you're just tuning in. Happy New Year. It's 8:33. You're watching Sky News at breakfast. These are our top stories for you this morning. More than 100,000 people welcomed in the new year, then the new decade in central London as 12,000 fireworks announced the beginning of 2020.
In their New Year messages, Boris Johnson has spoken of turning the page on division and rancour. The Archbishop of Canterbury, meanwhile, urging people to reconnect with others.
Donald Trump sends more troops to protect the US Embassy in Iraq and threatens Iran, saying it will have a big price to pay if lives are lost.
9 people are confirmed to have died in the bushfires which have engulfed Australia's southeast since Christmas. More than 200 homes were lost yesterday.
And the National Grid says it's reached a tipping point for the UK. Last year, more electricity was provided by zero-carbon means than by fossil fuels.
Let's take you straight to Hong Kong, where once again we are seeing tens of thousands of people emerging onto the streets, protesting against what they see as interference by Beijing in the semi-autonomous Hong Kong's democracy and diplomacy. Now, it appears that it's been peaceful thus far. Overnight, however, police did fire tear gas and rubber bullets in several districts. Crowds were briefly sprayed with a water cannon after some roads were blocked. Quite clearly, though, you could be seeing figures of perhaps 100,000 or more on the streets today. Beijing has said that they will continue to support the rule in Beijing.
Feels good, 41%.
That they would see
don't need to dump any
of these protests as we go into 2020. But protesters there chanting and holding signs up that say, "Let's keep fighting together in 2020," suggests that they have no intention of winding back their fight there. And a reminder as well that 6,500 people have been arrested by police since those protests began in what has been described as the worst political crisis faced by Hong Kong in many, many years.
Now, have you made a New Year's resolution yet? More than 100,000 people have pledged to stick to a plant-based diet for Veganuary, and the campaign is beginning to have an impact on restaurants and supermarkets. It stands down Whitehead.
Oh, you think that's what it is, do you?
Kebabs and burgers are top of the menu at Soul Food in Gloucester, but not everything on the fryer is as it seems. All the favourites served here are 100% plant-based, making this the city's first fully vegan takeaway.
In the last 18 months,
vegan kebab.
I've seen people becoming more open towards veganism and towards thinking about what they're putting inside their body. Most of our customers are meat eaters. They may believe it or not, and they just love the food and they love the change. And one of the most said phrases is it's just light. They don't feel heavy after they eat the food, so that's what's putting it back in.
January marks the start of the 7th Veganuary, with hundreds of thousands expected to ditch meat. Nutritionists say although there are benefits, a vegan diet can't provide everything that a human is used to.
it's down to the individual, and certainly if you decide not to eat meat, you can find nutrients to replace it. However, looking at following a vegan diet long term, there are certain nutrients that you definitely will be missing out on. So key things like iron, B12, perhaps vitamin D as well. All of those are found in animal products, but not in plant products to the same extent or at all.
That's so full of shit, this news channel, you know.
Organisers say going vegan is healthier and more environmentally friendly. Unsurprisingly, one industry not convinced is farming. James Small runs a farm in North Somerset and says quality meat should still be part of our diet.
What I'm really keen is that when people are looking
You eat my pies.
themselves, but not for the families, that they really look closely at what it is they're going to be buying and why they're going to be buying it. But what we do see is a lot of vegan food is heavily processed and has been brought from all around the world. And in today's climate, where we're starting to look at climate change, I think actually we need to start looking at what we can produce at home and looking for a good, sensible, healthy and balanced diet, of which I believe red meat and meat proteins play an absolute
Especially the ones I've grown.
Sticking with meat or
Oh, your
cutting it
cows
out
off me.
completely, awareness of what we eat and where it's come from is higher than ever before. Dan Whitehead, Sky News.
Oh, we love this story, don't we?
Yeah, sorry.
It's a mystery that's captivated a small village in County Durham, and it's also mystified the country at large. Well, what's been happening over the past 5 years? Bundles of cash, £2,000 at a time, have been appearing out of nowhere around the former mining village of Blackhall Colliery, but no one has yet claimed the money.
Sky's North of England correspondent Tom Parmenter has been to the village school to ask pupils there where they think all the cash is coming from.
We handed it all into the police station.
This is Metro Radio.
It's not claimed it can go to the police charity fund for our Christmas party.
It's their village, their mystery, and it just keeps happening.
Someone's been leaving money around like the streets, and people have been finding it and handing it in, but no one's known who's doing it. And there's been bundles of £20 notes being found scattered all over Blackhall Colliery. Last 5 years, from 2014, there's been 13 bundles of money, which is equal to £26,000.
Durham police have examined the evidence, but with nobody here claiming the cash as theirs, they've just been handing it back to the residents who found it.
Who do you think is leaving the money? There's a mystery of who it is, but my idea is that someone who hasn't had a great childhood has come to make others have the best childhood they can. Well, I don't think it's someone that lives in Blackhall Colliery, because Blackhall isn't the wealthiest village. People always think it's a man because men get more suspicious, basically. But then it could also be a woman. Maybe it might be a
Your cow.
There's some people in his gang. He's like a hero to all the other poor people. How honest are you? I'm very honest, but I don't think everyone's been handing it in, because you don't know if people's handed it in or not, because they're probably keeping it a secret. There's certain people who aren't honest and who would keep the money.
Really?
And
Do you think? Surely not.
People who would be honest and take to the police.
I've left £2,000 lying around somewhere. It must be mine, I think.
Because there's no point. You're going to take it, wait 2 weeks, and then you're going to get it back anyway.
If you found the money in the street, what would your face look like? Any of them could be the next lucky finder. So,
What would you do with the money? Cucumber.
cucumbers? Why?
Because I love cucumber. I would ask my mum and dad if I could buy an RV.
Okay, down. That's my hanger down there.
It's a car that has a house inside. Probably give it half of it to charity, and then I'd put the other
Only
half
half?
to do good, so help others. Spend it on healthy foods and healthy drinks, and give it to people that's poor. I'd get some ice skating lessons. Then I'd put
Ice skating lessons.
for holiday.
You wouldn't give it away?
No, because it's yours, so why would you want to give money away? It's weird.
It is weird. The last stash was left here, next to the tribute to Blackhall's mining heritage. This is an easier way to earn money, but they'd still like to know where it's from. Tom Parmenter, Sky News, County Durham.
We're going to have some weather now. Here we go.
500.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Good morning. If you're planning to head out and about and walk off the excesses of the new year, well, the good news is it's a largely dry day ahead. It is, however, quite a cloudy one. A few morning mist and fog patches. It's a bit chilly in places. There's been a touch of frost overnight, but generally speaking, it's a dry but cloudy picture through the day today. The odd spot of rain for the hills and coast of southwest England, northwest Scotland, otherwise staying dry. A little bit of brightness coming out across eastern parts of Ireland, North Wales, northern England not doing too badly. And to the lee of higher ground across Scotland, for example the Northwest Highlands, we'll see a few breaks in the cloud cover here too. But cloud breaks few and far between. Top temperatures for many, 6s and 7s. We should get double digits for parts of southern Ireland, maybe the Northwest Highlands as well. As we go through the night tonight, still got the cloud around, still pretty breezy, and that should mean largely frost and fog-free. We do have more rain though coming into the far northwest later, and this wetter and windier weather will sink slowly southwards as we go through the day on Thursday, eventually clearing through Friday morning.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
That's full power in there as well.
Fast approaching 8:45. Coming up next, we've got the paper review. Journalists Ella Whelan and James Butler back in the chips.